Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we're recording for Contrarians Corner for Dragged Across Concrete.
Hello. Welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. Here today to discuss a patron demand, and not the first time that S. Craig Zahler has been discussed on this podcast. Not the first time, certainly not the last. But in terms of deep diving, one of his films, one of the three movies that he has both penned and directed, this is certainly the first. And man, when's the last time we talked about Mel Gibson?
Signs, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, at long last, we get dramatic Vince Vaughn, which is something that I think we've always kind of joked about and alluded to.
I mean, he gets some dramatic moments in The Dilemma.
I guess so. Yeah, if you want to split some hairs, then. But a movie of a decidedly different tone is Dragged Across Concrete, with not much left of the imagination with a title like that. Don Johnson basically says you've been dragged across concrete.
Did you know that the original title was Not Bone Tomahawk?
Yeah, the original title was, it's not quite Bone Tomahawk, not even really close, but it's still okay. This coming from, again, S. Craig Zahler, Bone Tomahawk 2015, Brawl in Cell Block 99 in 2017, which is also dramatic Vince Vaughn. That's a movie I've, had kind of on my to-do list for, nearly a decade now. And then this one, which I got to be honest, I was not overly familiar with. What's brought this to the table for us, Julio?
Well, as you said, it's a patron demand, and that patron is Filmbusters Paul, who is always pretty eclectic with his choices. Sometimes he throws us pure blockbuster candy like the Suicide Squad, and sometimes he does this. I wish, obviously he's going to tell us after he listens to the episode, but I just want to know if we brought this upon ourselves because of all the praise we're constantly putting on Bone Tomahawk. Was this him kind of challenging us, saying, hey, how about you watch another movie from this guy that you apparently liked so much, and yet you didn't follow up either of his two other movies? Is this just Paul trying to expand our horizons, forcing us to that? Or is this just him giving us a movie that he really likes?
I could see this being a movie he's really into, to be honest with you.
Because of the gore?
Just the structuring and the dialogue, and there's a lot of things that are there to breathe, I guess you would say. But those movies I mentioned, his Rotten Tomatoes scores, Mr. Zahler, have, I feel bad if I'm mispronouncing his name, but, is what it is. He's only made 3 movies. It's not like we're talking about Scorsese here, 91% for Bone Tomahawk, 90% for Brawl in Cell Block 99, and 76% for Dragged Across Concrete. So for this first portion here, we're going to treat this as a fresh boy, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's still, isn't it certified fresh? I think I saw the little stamp of approval.
Oh my God, it is. Yeah. With 153 reviews, certified fresh, 76% here. I'm on the Rotten Tomatoes website now, looking at Mel Gibson just pointing a gun directly at me with his mustache and eyebrows raised.
daring you to not watch this movie.
Well, let's not follow the pacing of this film, Julio. Let's get right to it. Of those certified fresh reviews, which ones did you pull for us?
All right, a few fresh tomatoes that were not dragged across concrete. They were carefully picked up and put in a basket and then brought over to Rotten Tomatoes website. We're going to start with Steven Sheehan from The Digital Fix, who says, Dragged Across Concrete is Zahler flexing his script writing muscles, and it should come as no surprise he has also churned out 5 novels since 2010, with his latest feeling like an adaptation of one of his own books. This dude, who the fuck writes 5 novels in 9 years, right? This is 2019. Not even Stephen King.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts.
It'd be fun if like those 5 novels are all spin-offs of Bone Tomahawk and Brawl Across Cell 99, Block 99.
Brawl, yeah. He kept it so simple with Bone Tomahawk, and then Brawl and Cell Block 99 and Dragged Across Concrete, which isn't a movie title you can say quickly.
Nope. DAC.
There you go.
Next, Vicky Roach from the Daily Telegraph, Australia. Lean, exceptionally mean, and oddly compelling. Lean is not an adjective.
That's not. I mean, Michael Jai White is a very svelte individual, very ripped. I would describe him as lean. I don't know about the rest of this movie though. God, this thing's more stuffed than a Thanksgiving turkey, and it takes as long to cook.
Well. This happens to be the episode that follows Star Trek The Motion Picture. And that movie takes its time.
It's a very polite way of wording that.
Well, I mean, don't you feel like Zahler saw what the motion picture was doing? And he's like, oh, well, we don't need to. If we can do it with sci-fi, we can do it with anything. We can do it with Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn.
Hell of an inspiration to take from that.
Surprise, he already cast a canceled actor with Mel Gibson. Why didn't he cast Stephen Collins?
Well, I think there's levels to some of that.
Okay, Don Johnson. All right, next. Kevin N. LaForest from Extra Brr says, it's the kind of dark, disturbing, hardly consensual film that was more common in the 70s. In 2019, it's a miracle to discover something like that. In this dude's defense, it says full review in French, so there may be a translation problem here. Can you think of non-consensual movie watching experiences, Alex? Is that what happens every time we have a patron pick?
I guess, yeah. Non-consensual movie watch. Yeah, I've never been like fucking Clockwork Oranged or just like tied down. But I guess, yeah, that would be it. Or movies that we screened back in the day. We were paid to watch. We had to get through them. I was thinking of Push, that god-awful like sci-fi movie with Chris Evans. That's one that I just kind of sat there in terror.
Okay, we're going to close with Alasdair Bayman from Cinevu, who says, absent of the eccentric qualities that led Bone Tomahawk and Brawl in Cell Block 99 to be so well received, Zahler's latest outing feels a mature step forward. So this is Jackie Brown. This is where he stops playing around and becomes a real filmmaker, according to Alasdair Bayman. I feel like, we were dealt the cards we were dealt. So, but I feel like we're at a little bit of a disadvantage to trace Mr. Zahler's career, having watched Bone Tomahawk and not having watched Brawl in Cell Block 99, because I don't know. I feel like that movie, Brawl in Cell Block 99, holds the key to deciding if he's a one-hit wonder or if Drag Across Concrete is just a misstep that he can recover from. He hasn't made a single movie since.
It's his Bronson, we got to trace it back and figure things out.
Right. Is this his Neon Demon?
I've actually got it earmarked for tomorrow. I'm going to watch Brawl in Cell Block 99 because I use the Plex streaming service to watch this today. And that movie's also on there.
It suggested as the credits were rolling. You may also like.
It suggested that and Chopper, which I was like, Chopper rules. And my sister ended up watching that in the living room as I went to do more work. So
it did that, Chopper, and Wedding Crashers.
There you go.
But those are the quotes, Alex. So let's drag this movie across concrete.
When we worked together, you weren't that rough.
And
It's not healthy for you to scuff concrete as long as you have.
So with this one, more so even than some of our other episodes, I'll be kind of keeping us on track. There's a few things I want to call out, but I'll be recounting the plot while Julio adds some color to it. Because, for as much as we're making a joke of like this movie really drags, and it does at parts.
Across concrete.
Across concrete. It's very dense with material and things you have to keep up with. But essentially, Julio, this is what the 12 Monkeys idea of like all these paths crossing in one moment, creating like this bigger story overall. I would go as far as to say this is not 12 Monkeys in terms of quality or lasting cultural impact, but
a lot less time travel too.
Yes, it's one of those movies where you are introduced to people not sure how this all intersects until it does,
You know what it is? This is like the poor man's Heat mixed up with the poor man's Pulp Fiction, maybe. You have these characters and they're all pretty despicable and unpleasant to be around. But there's like they're like little crimes and then they're bigger crimes. And then it kind of all comes together at the end. But it's all an excuse for as Craig Zahler to just give us his anti-woke manifesto. So really, the story is an excuse for him to be as non-PC as possible.
Yeah, it certainly feels like he's fine taking those liberties a la Tarantino, but there's somehow the charm missing. We're in the fictional city of Bulwark, Bulwark, and a recent parolee, Henry Johns, this being played by Tory Kittles, who I'm not familiar with from anything else. The movie opens with him chastising his mother for returning to prostitution and taking drugs before reuniting with his handicapped younger brother. 3 weeks later, police detectives Brett Ridgman, Mel Gibson, and Anthony Loracetti, this is Vince Vaughn.
Serious Vince Vaughn.
Very serious Vince Vaughn. Are suspended without pay by the police department after a video surfaced revealing them committing police brutality on a drug dealer. So my first note here says Norm Macdonald tone whores, because the movie starts with like multiple instances of prostitution and how that backfires. And
the movie literally starts with what's his name? This guy's name? Skittles?
Tory Kittles.
Tory Kittles. He's literally ejaculating as the movie opens.
It's true.
Bold move. How do you follow that up?
With more people ejaculating. This bald white dude though doesn't get to get his nut. He gets run off before he gets his head bashed in.
Instead, he's forced to take the trash out.
That's pretty baller. He's like, take that trash out while you leave. Okay, I will. And then the drug dealer they apprehend. I don't know if his girlfriend is a prostitute, but they certainly treat her as such and not quite torture her, but certainly put her in an uncomfortable situation.
It's such an abrupt cut from the opening, 10 minutes, this guy Kittles, Henry John, like we follow him for about 10 minutes. He gets picked up by his friend, taken home, and then finds his mom with this dude, kicks him out, and then he sees his little brother, checks in on his little brother who likes video games. Little brother, Alex, did you recognize him?
I did not.
Kin. It's the little kid from Kin.
Oh my God. Well, there you go.
Another triumphant Contrarians return. Anyway, there's a lot of like black people in the black community kind of thing. And then cut to a close-up of Mel Gibson. You couldn't get any whiter if you tried. It's like old Mel Gibson too, canceled Mel Gibson. He's not trying to be funny. He's not trying to be heroic. This is just a character and an actor that has been kind of like beaten by life. And it really, tell me, Alex, at what point did you start getting uncomfortable during the really long opening of this movie?
It's so awkward when he finds his mom's return to prostitution and they just kind of stand there. It feels kind of like a Nicholas Winding Refn piece of business because there's just no dialogue. It's just like long periods of silence and whatnot. This film was so awkward for a stretch of time that when Mel Gibson showed up on screen, I went, oh, thank God.
Gibson was kind of like the big question mark for me as far as how this fits in his filmography in the history of the world with Mel Gibson. Like this, it's kind of inescapable. Like Mel Gibson has had a very public, very well-known fall from grace. And so it's one thing when we're watching him on Signs, because we know exactly where that fits, right? But when you're watching a movie like this, and it's like, this is from the guy that did Bone Tomahawk, it stars Vince Vaughn. This is not like one of those direct-to-video, direct-to-streaming movies that, you see him in the last 10 years or so. Like, this kind of like a big profile thing. So I was like, is this supposed to be Gibson's comeback? And then I'm like, why would you make him play this character? That
no
kind
shit.
of reinforces every bad thing that people have been saying about him for the past decade or more.
He's certainly comfortable in it.
No shit. What do you think? Do you think that Vince Vaughn was constantly squirming? Or was he like reassuringly hugging him? It's like, you're doing all right, Mel.
A large part of the movie is their like duo. And I just can't. I don't know if I know anything about what Vince Vaughn's supposed to be like personally. I know he's like supposed to be deceptively tall, like everyone talks about when they meet him. They're shocked at how tall he is, and I've never heard anything necessarily bad about him, like someone difficult to work with or anything. But I'm just like wondering what they talked about in between takes or like in makeup and shit.
Maybe they stayed in character the entire time.
The documentary of the making of this is probably more interesting than the movie itself.
Please. Release the behind the scenes tapes. I just realized, Alex, we have had even a closer approximation to the dramatic Vince Vaughn character, and that was his coach, trainer in the Zahler movie, Fighting with My Family. That was that was dramatic Vince Vaughn.
That was close. Yeah.
This
Not
is
quite
just,
here.
No,
yeah.
This is ultra dramatic Vince Vaughn. It doesn't help how the movie doesn't give him any room to be funny, and even when he tries to be funny, the shots, the way the movie's shot is just like designed to suck the fun out of everything. Like you see him bring a coffee, and I think it's supposed to be kind of humorous that he doesn't bring Mel Gibson a coffee, and there is an attempt, I guess, at banter between them about the fact that he didn't bring him coffee, but it just doesn't go anywhere. It just, the dialogue lies there and it dies because Zahler doesn't cut away, doesn't edit it, doesn't give it any sort of comedy pace, right? It's just these dudes throwing lines out there, and then there's silence and nothing's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to hold off all of my Bone Tomahawk comparisons till the second half. Like, this is why it's better. But yeah, we'll definitely circle back to the dialogue and the quizzical use of language and pacing come part two, come Real Talk.
Where's mine?
Spilled.
You didn't think to go back and get me another?
Accelerated the event. There was little time and less inclination.
But they're suspended after he roughhouses this drug dealer, and it is pretty inexcusable. He stomps his face into the fire escape grating and shit. The lieutenant, or the police chief, is played by Don Johnson. Kind of disappointed we didn't get more of Don Johnson in this. I kind of was hoping from this point it was going to be them like returning back to him and getting reprimanded by him, right, by Don Johnson, and then I don't have to listen to you, chief. I don't take orders from you. I take orders from the people, that type of shit. But
give me your badge.
No, this movie all takes place in a pretty consolidated period of time.
I don't know, man. That stakeout feels like it took months.
Well, yes. The way I know it's consolidated is because we live all of it with the movie. And it took up, 1 day of my life. Both detectives are desperate for money, with Ridgman needing cash to move to a safer neighborhood for his family, and also his ill wife that he's trying to help out, who has a disease. She is like using a walker and shit.
Well, the real disease is that she's racist.
Yes.
Even though she literally has the line, "I am not racist, but," and then she says some racist shit.
Yeah. But they need to move to a safer neighborhood, while Laura Setti stalls in proposing to his girlfriend, Denise. On a tip from Friedrich, a wealthy businessman with criminal connections, Ridgman recruits Lorsetti to help him surveil and rob Lorenz Vogelman, a professional thief. Now, what this doesn't mention here is Friedrich works at a Gucci, like a high-end fucking clothing store in the mall, and is played by Julio.
Contrarians' favorite, Udo Kier.
Hell yeah. And he has maybe 5 lines of dialogue in this, but it's Udo Kier. So, of course, he like looks awesome. He has like this office that's just all wood paneling and mahogany. And, he sits down. I think there's like a candle lit at his desk and he has a glass of scotch or some shit. And what do you want? Just talking to Mel Gibson that way. But yeah, it's a pretty straightforward scenario. It's kind of shocking that it takes Mel Gibson 20 minutes to explain to Vince Vaughn what they're doing, whereas we, the audience, are like, yep, got it.
Yeah, they made it sound like there's more to it, right? When he finally explains to Vince Vaughn what's going to happen, we're going to learn what we were missing. It turns out we were not missing anything. It is exactly what the movie was hinting at. Not even hinting at, like just straight up showing us. They need money, so he's going to get money by illegal means. Gibson's wife, Alex, do you know her from anything? Laurie Holden.
I recognize her face. I just couldn't place it anywhere.
One of your favorite movies, The Mist. She's one of those last survivors. Most people probably know her from The Walking Dead. She was there in the first couple seasons. I know her character doesn't make it much longer.
I know. I'm looking at it right now. She's been on the Contrarians before. She's the cop in Silent Hill that gets like
oh my
burned.
God, that was a while ago.
Yeah, that's like OG days.
Yeah.
But yeah, she gets one of the more like upsetting deaths in a modern horror movie where you remember where they use the ladder to drape her over that fire and she just burns above it?
Now I do.
I'd blocked it out of my memory. Yeah, that's where I know her face from. Here she was suffering, but in a different way.
Yeah, here it was mostly suffering socially. I think it's kind of a cheap... I mean, everything about this is like cheap manipulation, and that's fine. I've said it before. You've said it before. Movies are meant to manipulate you. That's part of the game, right? We watch movies so they carefully manipulate us into feeling certain emotions or whatever. But the idea here is obviously we're going to spend 30 minutes showing how Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson are at best good cops with very bad habits, and at worst, bad cops that have been on the force for way too long. And Don Johnson should have suspended them a long time ago. And the only reason he suspended them now is because it's a PR move, right? The video is gonna be leaked to the news, so they have to do something. But anyway, it's all corruption, whatever. Why would you like these guys? Oh well, now we're gonna show you why you should like them. Because Mel Gibson's wife is sick and she has to use a cane, and his daughter gets harassed whenever she gets off the bus, and Vince Vaughn, he's a good guy. He wants to propose to his girlfriend, and relatable stuff. Did this work for you? Because I was so aware of the manipulation. It made me resent the characters even more. I was like, fuck you, you're still racist.
So when we're about to get to it, speaking of emotional manipulation, I was kind of with the movie in a, this isn't great, but let's go type of way until a sequence of events happens. And I was like, okay, fuck this.
Okay, I think I know what you mean.
So what you're saying is accurate, but at no point was I wasn't quite writing it off yet. I thought this was just going to be like a flawed script that, look, we can say about this movie is this movie thinks it's a lot more biting than it actually is. It thinks it's a lot sharper. It's, brother, things to do in Denver when you're dead. This movie wishes it was, in the sense of like establishing characters that you kind of are into, and then establishing language in the universe of this movie that you're supposed to get into and like understand. Now's as good a time to any. For some reason, when things go bad or unexpectedly, Vince Vaughn's character says anchovies. He just like says it like, and not even exclaims it.
Nope.
He says it in a way that you'd be like playing a video game alone by yourself and you'd go, fuck. Like that's the way he'll just say anchovies to himself. And when Mel Gibson explains the whole setup to him and, what they're there to do, he says, this is bad. It's bad like lasagna in a can. And, it's possible that old S. Craig thought that line of dialogue is going to become the new sewer rat may taste like pumpkin fucking pie, but I'll never know.
How about Mel Gibson's quirk of assigning percentages to everything?
So that is similar to Richard Jenkins in Bone Tomahawk saying it's the opinion of the assistant sheriff or assistant deputy or whatever. The difference is Richard Jenkins' character in that movie is unbelievably likable, and Richard Jenkins is unbelievably likable.
Exactly.
And Mel Gibson is Mel Gibson. And this movie was made after 1994. So, there's some complicated emotions that come into it.
As a nation, we are in no mood to see Mel Gibson try to be quirky.
Mel Gibson is a great actor. That's something I can't take away. We were complimentary of his performance in Signs.
Yep.
That's also not a movie. And the Signs is even before like shit really hit the fan. But that's not a movie that he comes across as a fucking asshole in that movie. And I'm open to watching Mel Gibson act in movies again and we'll see in this, and we'll get more into this in the second half. There are moments of this where it's like, yep, that's Mel Gibson. But these ideas of trying to make him fun or quirky or make him someone that I'm like, oh man, look at this guy. Yeah, that's not going to work. Sorry. And the hilarious part about that is on the other side of the screen is Vince Vaughn, who in every movie my thought is like, God, he's the best.
Think they'll go back to the parking garage after this?
50%.
50% doesn't value anything in a yes or no question.
Look, we're already here. And I know we're going to revisit this in real talk, but it's just too funny, and it's too, like, how can you not bring it up? This movie, a big chunk of it is, intentionally or not, I think it's intentional. This movie, a big chunk of it is an attempt to redeem the character of Mel Gibson, whatever his fucking name is. You show him as a person that's just reprehensible, has done some really bad things, and then the rest of the movie is kind of an attempt at getting you to maybe sympathize with him, like buy into it. He may be bad, but he's not as bad as these other people. And I was watching, I was like, all right, well, that's the story of the movie telling, but is it also the story of the movie? Like, is this S. Craig Zahler, is he like a big Mel Gibson fan? And he's like, all right, Mel, we're going to bring you back by having you act in the story of a guy that has said some bad things, had done some bad things, needs a serious PR reimagining. And we put him in an adventure that's going to, maybe by the end of the movie, the audience is going to feel bad when you die. Is that what's happening? Like, was this Zahler's agenda to bring back Mel Gibson this way? It's like the formula. You surround him by likable actors. You put Vince Vaughn there. You put Don Johnson there. Fuck it. The lady from Walking Dead. Put Laurie Holden there. It's so weird. There's no way that anybody, even if Zahler for some reason was like blind, had a blind spot to it, like people in the industry would know what it looks like. That you're having this guy. It's like Michael Keaton playing Birdman, right? Or even
Mickey Rourke.
Mickey Rourke playing the wrestler. Like, you are casting those actors because of the history they bring to, their own history that becomes part of the character's history, like, or kind of mirrors the character's history. So when you cast problematic actor Mel Gibson that has fallen from grace to play problematic cop, whatever his name is, that has fallen from grace, it has to be intentional. And I think it's a misfire. I think it's one of the reasons that the movie doesn't quite grab you.
You already have serious Vince Vaughn here. Like, you could honestly just swap him, and not necessarily that you could keep the same storyline of like Mel Gibson has a girl he's going to propose to, but as an audience member and just the shit we're talking about, it's going to be a lot easier to observe Vince Vaughn being problematic and then like Mel Gibson being his partner that's trying to like talk him off a ledge than it is, what they're going for here is, like you said, reminding people, and in some parts they do, that Mel Gibson's a good actor and a good action actor. But the winning formula for this would to be Mel Gibson is the supporting role.
Yeah.
That you find yourself shocked in moments where you're like, man, I wish Mel Gibson was more involved in this scene or something. But
you're a genius. It's true. It's true. I feel like when somebody, I read somewhere that they were like, oh, the way that Analyze This would have been amazing would have been if you swapped Billy Crystal and De Niro. And it's Billy Crystal playing the gangster and De Niro's playing the psychiatrist. Yes. And I was like, holy shit, that's true. I like the movie, but that would definitely just make it truly memorable, like a classic. And that's I think that's the thing that would have really unlocked it, because also it would just be so cool to see Vince Vaughn play a complete asshole. Here he's an asshole, but he is, out of the two, he's the one that's more sympathetic and has more of a conscience.
They have their cake and eat it too, or whatever that expression is with Vince Vaughn in this, because even still they get the comedy out of him of slowly eating a sandwich. And psychotically, he has a salt shaker that he like just salts one bite of the sandwich. I'm very sensitive to like things that are too salty. So, I say that, but people would think I'm insane because when I eat like a burrito or like, some sandwiches too, I have a bottle of hot sauce that I'll just sauce individual bites and shit like that. So I do like his line afterwards, though, where that whole sequence is just so doesn't fit in this movie, where Mel Gibson's like, I've been listening to that for 98 minutes. But Vince Vaughn has a great line of saying, in a stakeout, the best part is the eating, or something like that. He says, so you have to savor it.
So the stakeout, Alex.
Anchovies. Yeah.
Yes, the stakeout, since you brought it up. That is basically the second act of the movie. Just this really long sequence of sequences where it's just Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn stalking these people.
Yeah. It's the stakeout into the first round of tailing that they do of them. So Vogelman commits a series of violent robberies to pay for a customized bulletproof van. Henry and his childhood friend Biscuit, this is Michael Jai White of Dark Knight fame, are then hired by Vogelman as getaway drivers for a bank robbery in which Vogelman and his crew, gray gloves and black gloves, again, because this isn't someone trying to be Quentin Tarantino, take employees and customers as hostages. Were they their customers? So what happens in this is this long stakeout where they're taking turns sleeping in the car, processing, as they call it. And is processing
the master? Yes.
The master. Okay. Yeah.
Could have used that scene during the stakeout.
When they eventually figure out what's going on, it turns into this long sequence of them tailing them and then becoming aware of what's going on. So we're probably an hour and 20 minutes into the movie at this point. And having watched the trailer and read about it, I was looking forward to the appearance of Jennifer Carpenter. And this is where Jennifer Carpenter shows up. She plays Kelly Summer. And it starts very interestingly because I've watched the movie up to this point and realized, oh, these paths are going to cross in some capacity. And Jennifer Carpenter's, her character's having a hard time getting on this bus downtown. You wonder what's wrong. And she goes back to her apartment, and we learn that it's her first day back to work after maternity leave, and she's having intense separation anxiety. And at the risk of, I don't want to come across as insensitive, I don't know if this would be considered postpartum depression. I know it's very well documented. Women react differently in those situations. I'm not one of them, so I'm not going to speak for them. But the situation here is that she is extremely anxious about leaving her baby, and to the point where... I got
good news for you, Alex. Whatever her diagnosis is, it's not going to matter in 5 minutes.
Jesus. She's been locked out of her own apartment because her husband's like, dog, you went through all your maternity leave, your sick days and everything. I'm going to be here with him. You make more money, because it looks like she works at a really like high-end bank. And she has like what appears to be an early Oscar clip where it's a moment of really good acting where she breaks down in the doorway and talks about like her job is stupid and she just wants to be with her child, but eventually ends up going to work. And this is where her path crosses with Vogelman's gang as they're robbing this bank for cash and also bullion.
If our associate does not return with gold bullion in 3 minutes or less, we will execute this woman.
If I seemed annoyed during the recap or kind of insensitive to the plight of the Kelly character, it's because she arrives at work and runs across this gang that's robbing the bank, and she is like brutally murdered. And Julio, one of the things you always would jump on me about the Family Stone, we are recording this the week before Christmas, so as good a time as any to bring up one of the Christmas classics. And I've conceded a bit to it, the emotional manipulation of Diane Keaton's character, her diagnosis, and how that plays out vis-a-vis the events of the family and the following year and whatnot. I don't agree with you completely in that particular case, but the reason I bring it up is if like that's the ground floor. This is like the penthouse suite of that idea of using an actual serious subject matter for emotional manipulation of the audience. And then like Rob Zombie would watch this and be like, God damn, dude, way to bring down the mood.
Man, you're making the Family Stone look so good right now with that comparison, because that movie, at least, is cohesive in the sense that Diane Keaton is part of the movie. Jennifer Carpenter is brought into the movie just to get killed, and her death has no effect on the story. So what was the point?
There was none. I know she was in that Block 99 movie also. So I guess it's just the idea of, oh, she had worked with S. Craig here before, but it's so undignified. And again, like, not to mention, she's shot in the hands because she's trying to prevent a coworker from signaling for the cops or sending like a distress email, because they said if the cops are here, everyone dies. And when she tries to stop that, they shoot her in the arms. And then she's on the ground because she has her baby's sock, and she's like begging these killers to please get this back to my son. And she starts like saying his name, and she's like in shock and fucking, and then they just shoot her in the head with like a machine gun. And spoiling what we're going to come to here, there's a way where Jennifer Carpenter is in this movie. It would still probably die in the end, but it's in a way that at least, doesn't just feel so cheap like this. Yeah. This feels like hot shotting, is a phrase we would use in wrestling, but just fucking, she's there for you to go, oh, that's Jennifer Carpenter. And then be like, oh man, she's in a tough spot. And then she's just gunned down for really no reason.
It's so dumb too, because all I can think of is that this is the movie's way of showing us that these criminals mean business, except that we already knew that, because we've already seen them kill plenty of people. And honestly, them killing, the fact that it's Jennifer Carpenter that's killed, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's a big deal in the sense that we know she's a big name, but
yes. To be fair, this could be any female actress, and it would still be like if it was pulled off the exact same way as is like frustrating and like, what the fuck? Come on, man.
Yeah, but it's imagine it's not Jennifer Carpenter, it's Meryl Streep, for example, right? Exact same script, exact same scenes. I think I would have a little more respect for it, because I'd be like, okay, that was a major troll move, right?
Yeah.
You would never think that would happen to Meryl Streep. But Jennifer Carpenter, I mean, it's not that big of a move. It really feels like what you just said. Oh, it's somebody that he had worked with before. So he just, hey, do you want to come in for a couple days? It's not, it doesn't work. It's funny, which is the worst thing that can happen at that point. Like, I laughed when it happened. I was like, what the fuck? And I think I'm supposed to be horrified when it happens.
Yeah, I think I said, oh, fuck off, like aloud. I have in my notes, well, that sucks. It's like if we learned that Drew Barrymore had gone through some traumatic episode and was on the mend right before Ghostface kills her at the beginning of Scream. Not to compare the star power of Jennifer Carpenter to Drew Barrymore, but you know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Drew Barrymore post Breaking the Strike, you might be actually on the same level there.
Better off one of two ways. One, Jennifer Carpenter just works at the bank, and you're like, oh shit, it's Jennifer Carpenter, and then she gets killed, you're like, oh shit. But having that whole fucking introduction scene is just asinine and insulting. Yes. Like, this is real talk. It's insulting to your audience, and it's lazy. It's extremely lazy screenwriting and execution of it as well. But you could also have Jennifer Carpenter stay alive to become the hostage that the bank robbers take off with, because they kill everyone else. And then also, speaking of undignified, respected actor Fred Melamed gets his dick cut off in the bank, or at least his testicles.
What the fuck is this guy doing, though? I've seen him in other movies, most notably, I think, In a World, the movie about the voiceover contest. You know what I'm talking about?
He was in a few Woody Allen movies, right? Probably.
Maybe Coen Brothers too. I feel like he's one of those guys.
Oh yeah.
This is the first time I've seen him in a movie. I'm like, what is he doing? He's acting like he's in a different type of movie. The way that his dialogue is so theatrical. You know what I'm talking about? Everybody else is in the real world.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. It's it feels very cover band-ish from a filmmaking perspective. It just feels like this guy is trying to have characters and trying to give direction that he's seen in other movies, but he thinks he's putting his own spin on it. It's very, very bizarre.
Welcome back. Welcome back, and congratulations on bringing such a lovely boy child into this world.
Thank you, Mr. Edmonton.
All of us at the bank have great expectations for your boy.
A bank employee, Kelly Summer, who came back to work from her maternity leave, is executed by the bank robbers after preventing a colleague from notifying the police via email. And we also forgot to mention that this happens right after she sees like a welcome arrangement that's been set with pictures of her child. It's God, I hated it. Hated it. I texted Julio that like that one sequence of the movie knocked my review down an entire star. So look forward to more discussion of this in part 2. Here we go. The thieves castrate the bank manager and then escape with the bullion and a hostage, Cheryl, while being tailed by Ridgman and Lorenzetti, which Henry notices. Unsettled by Vogelman and his henchman's brutality, Henry and Biscuit are then forced to surrender their weapons. Realizing they may be killed, Henry chooses not to reveal to Biscuit or the thieves that they are being followed by the detectives. Lorenzetti learns of the atrocities committed by the thieves and berates Ridgman for not intervening sooner or notifying the authorities, but Ridgman asserts that law enforcement would be too late and only the two of them can deal with the thieves. Lorenzetti opts against delaying his marriage proposal to the niece and leaves her a voicemail guiding her to the engagement ring. So, Julio, I think we're supposed to get the impression that Mel Gibson has been hardened by his years in the position, his years on the streets, and Vince Vaughn still has some empathy, sympathy, some caring, some heart left to him, because he's obviously very upset when he learns that 5 people, whatever it was, were killed in this situation.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn hasn't been dragged across concrete long enough. Don Johnson had him pegged from the beginning. He told Mel Gibson, you need a break. You're going to lose yourself. And he does, like Eminem. He's just dead set on getting that money. And although he tries to justify it, right? Doesn't he say at some point, we're the only ones that can make a difference right now? Or it's on us now? Like, he's talking like he's going to, like it's about justice. But really, it's still about the money. So are you still, as we're watching the movie, I can tell you, like, I was never on Mel Gibson's side. I was always, no matter how hard the movie tried to get me to sympathize a little bit, I was like, look, this movie needs to end with him getting shot. And that was my position the entire time. Vince Vaughn, I think because he's just inherently more likable. I just wanted him, what I wanted this movie to lead to was a confrontation between these two men. Right? Like at some point, Vince Vaughn, even though it was a pretty obvious thing for, if it happened, I just wanted him to get to a point where Vince Vaughn is sad enough. He's been low key complaining and putting out objections. And then he finally has it out with Mel Gibson. But the thing with the proposal is just also, I guess after the Jennifer Carpenter subplot, nothing seems too outrageous. Like nothing is going to be worse than that. But if you didn't have the Jennifer Carpenter subplot, then this would be pretty bad as well. Like it would look even worse. Him calling his girlfriend and directing her to find the ring in the pocket. And it's like, what are you doing? Again, the manipulation is pretty obvious. Or were you caught up in it, Alex? Where you're like, oh, I really hope she says yes.
I was not. No.
You're like, girl, run.
Yeah.
Nobody should propose in a voicemail.
I like the idea of Jennifer Carpenter being in that role, though, his girlfriend, because it's a very nothing part. So I'm going to come out of this movie like rooting harder for Jennifer Carpenter. All right.
To recover from this movie.
Yeah. I think she's doing all right. That Dexter syndication money, she'll be doing okay. But we have a precedent for talented, beautiful actresses playing Vince Vaughn's inconsequential girlfriend in movies that we've done in the Contrarians, a la Rachel Weisz in Fred Claus. So,
and Jennifer Connelly in The Dilemma.
Oh my God! Yes, you're right. I always just think of fucking Winona Ryder and Channing Tatum sucking face in that movie. I forget about
as you should.
how absurd the rest of it is. Arriving at a garage in the countryside, Biscuit leaps out of the van and is shot as Henry wounds Grey Gloves with a hidden gun. Mortally wounded, Biscuit swallows the van's key, imploring Henry to take care of his mother. He is shot dead by the thieves. Cheryl is sent to pull Biscuit's body into the van, and Black Gloves cuts the key out of Biscuit's stomach as Ridgman and Loracetti arrive and ram the van, knocking it over. All right, so a couple things to talk about here. I did think it was pretty cool that Michael Jai White ate the key. I was like, all right, someone did something cool. Twice, yes, because he threw it up. These guys, I guess, are doctors because they know how to dissect a body.
The one that's doing the cutting takes offense when the other guy tries to give him directions.
And we kind of see all of it. We watch him pull his entrails out in his stomach and, his liver. And it borders on like approaching comedy at this point. And when Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson pull up, they're in the process of like putting on they already have Kevlar on, but they put these like masks on that are like Kevlar face masks. And all I could think was, man, there's a different movie where this is like a fist pumpingly cool moment. Yeah. But nope. Nope. It's
not just that it's tiresome, because by now we're like past the 2-hour mark in the movie, but also I brought up Heat earlier, and that's what I was thinking. Because Heat is, yes, it's a very different movie, but it has some elements. It's a really long movie. It also has a whole bunch of characters. I don't know if you remember, Alex, but the getaway driver gets his own subplot that it's a lot of buildup, but it's done the proper way, right? Like what they do with the Jennifer Carpenter character here, which is like, oh, they give her like one scene and then she dies. With the getaway driver in Heat, he actually has like a lot of scenes building up to the point where it matters, right? All his tragedy matters because it's what makes him say yes when De Niro approaches him to offer him the job. And then when he dies, he's the first casualty during the heist. It's like, it matters. It's like, oh yeah, I saw this guy make a lot of bad decisions and go through a lot of shit that landed him here. But then there's also like the big heist, and it's violent. And these are obviously De Niro, Val Kilmer, Tom Sizemore. They're bad people. But there's like a little bit of class to the whole thing, which I think is what makes Heat enjoyable. And Pacino's good, De Niro's good, and you're invested in this confrontation, and you know that they're doing bad things, but you're never disgusted by the things that they're doing. The problem with this crew in Drag the Cross Concrete is that I was disgusted the entire time, either morally or just grossed out by the things that they were doing. Like, oh, they're just cutting this guy open. Seeing them cut out that stomach for more than 30 seconds, it's already overkill. Like, no wonder this movie is like 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn, when the gunfire begins, he says, "This is excessive," and I was like, couldn't have said it better myself.
It's the pale sack in there, the one that looks like
I know which one it is.
Careful not to pop his liver.
Cheryl is coerced by Vogelman into faking an escape that lets her shoot Loracetti. She's then executed by Ridgman in turn. So she tries to shoot him in the face, but he has that Kevlar mask on, but then she shoots him like in the side, like kind of up through the armpit area. And then Mel Gibson shoots her fucking face off. Like her face just explodes. Ridgman then quickly kills Black Gloves as he exits the van. Ridgman hands the dying Loracetti his phone, and Loracetti listens to a voicemail from Denise declining his proposal before he succumbs to his wounds. So there's just like no happiness here.
What have we learned, Palmer?
Yeah, exactly.
What was the point of the Vince Vaughn character?
For real, it could have, like, at this point, it's just like this could have just been Mel Gibson, because Mel Gibson kills all three of the dudes.
Yeah. Is Vince Vaughn there just to show us that, well, if you're just even a little bit sympathetic, you're doomed. There's no room for that kind of behavior, that kind of empathy. Because literally, he gets killed. It's like amateur hour. They never even suspect that it's all a trap, that they're sending this woman towards them so easily.
And she's not responding to them. Like, she's no sense. No sense. Ridgman fills the van with tear gas and kills Grey Gloves as he surrenders. Before Ridgman can torch the van, Henry fires a warning shot and insists that the valuable contents of the van be spared. Ridgman climbs on top of the van and kills Vogelman before the latter can shoot him through the retractable slit in the van. Henry shoots Ridgman in the foot and reveals that he has recorded the entire incident on his cell phone and identifies Ridgman as a detective. Disarming Henry, Ridgman proposes they split the score, and together they load the bodies and the bullion in the getaway car. After towing Lorenzetti's car to a dump site, Ridgman reveals a hidden firearm and threatens Henry to get him to delete the video. Henry and Ridgman both shoot at each other, with Henry mortally wounding Ridgman. Henry agrees with the dying Ridgman to bury Lorenzetti and to take care of Ridgman's family, and later buries all the bodies, promising the deceased Biscuit that he will return to give him a proper burial along with the two detectives. A lot happens here, and it takes about 40 minutes.
Yep.
There is a point, I do want to stress, there is a point before all this goes down that there is a real feeling of tension into the movie that I enjoyed. But this sequence it takes just way too long.
When Mel Gibson says we need to bury them, because Henry says, what are we gonna do with our friends? And he says we have to bury them, and my heart sank because I was like, oh my god, we're gonna see them bury them. This fucker is going to spend 10 minutes showing us them digging a hole. Not quite. Instead, he spent 10 minutes showing us the whole drive to wherever it is that they get rid of the car. Alex, do you think the movie's making the point that it's unfair that Mel Gibson can't claim self-defense when, he shot this woman that killed Vince Vaughn, right? He shoots her. That is kind of a clear case of self-defense, right? If he hadn't done it, he was going to be next.
Well, the whole point is he shouldn't be there in the first place. So no matter, even it's still going to be a murder. He shouldn't be in that situation.
I agree. I mean, there is, but that's not how Henry plays it, right? What he says is, look, if I play this video, you already are in trouble for people already know that you're racist, because apparently Mel Gibson is so famous that this dude that had never met him before recognized him from the TV. He knows that he's the cop that got arrested or that got suspended for being racist and attacking the Mexican drug dealer. So it felt like the movie was saying, well, Gibson was justified in defending himself and killing this woman, but because he's already in trouble, because cancel culture has already blamed him and put him as a bad person, then that video would just condemn him. It would just basically make him look even worse than he really is, which is a really weird thing to say, a really tricky territory to wade into when you have 20 minutes of movie left. I don't understand. I feel like the movie is like the Laurie Holden character, the whole I'm not racist, but I'm not saying that Mel Gibson didn't do anything wrong, but I wish that they just streamlined it. Just make it a regular crime thriller. Maybe get rid of all the hints at social commentary, and maybe would have gotten here faster. Because at the end, I got what I wanted, Alex. He got shot. Gibson dies.
He did. And Henry stays true to his word, takes care of Ridgman's family. We get the 11 months later. Henry's now living in a lavish mansion with his mother and brother. He sends Ridgman's family a package containing his share of the gold. So I guess just none of this gold was tracked.
Yep.
And had no way of, I guess it wasn't looked for.
What the fuck is Laurie Holden going to do with those gold bricks?
She says, thank you, when she opens it. Yeah. If she turns them in, it's so easy. People, if she tries to cash them out, people are like, oh, well, your husband disappeared right when all this shit was stolen. So, and then there was no suspicion raised when Henry bought that fucking mansion.
Right? It's unintentional comedy, unless it's intentional. And maybe we've been misjudging as Craig Zahler. Maybe this was supposed to be a comedy all along, because the lengths to which he goes to establish that Henry is a rich dude now, it's too much. In the span of maybe 60 seconds, the words massage, ocean, sushi, broker, it's just spitballing everything. It's like a Mad Libs of wealthiness. It's a little too much. And then of course he goes, he meets the kid from Kin, and he's like, God, what's his final line? Something about let's go kill some lions, because they're playing that video game.
Yeah, let's go hunt some lions.
Yeah. You get it, Alex? The lions are white people.
I guess so. His brother does have that awesome line at the beginning of the movie when they're playing that safari game. He's like, even if I could, I wouldn't do this. He says, this is some rich white people shit. And I was like, man, that sounds like a line straight out of the Contrarians. But at least the movie ends on a hell of a high note. As the closing credits, there's a song called Shotgun Safari that plays over it by the OJs, and that song is a fucking banger.
Did you see that S. Craig Zahler has co-writing credit on all the songs?
I did. That was a bit quizzical.
Yeah. Man, was this his passion project? Was this the one that he's been building up to? I thought you were going to reference the fact that we get maybe another argument for this being a comedy. We get the fun end credits. We get all the actors with their names, and like you get to see them in scenes, except that in comedies, usually the freeze frames you get are funny ones. And here, they're all really depressing, sad shots of them.
Yeah.
And everybody gets them. It's not even like just the main cast. Like Mel Gibson's daughter gets one. Jennifer Carpenter gets one. Even the gray gloves and black gloves. You never see them faces, but you still get them there at the end credits. What's going on? What's happening with it's Craig Zahler? Is he okay?
Shotgun Safari.
And that was Dragged Across Concrete.
That it was. My final line, Alex, on my notes says, I'm not saying this movie's racist, but I'm saying this movie thinks it's not racist because the black guy won.
Yeah, at this point, I was just kind of ready for it to be over. I was saying anchovies to myself. And the worst part of the Mel Gibson character card is they didn't include him smoking because he was a very good smoker in this movie. Clearly someone who had or has smoked cigarettes during the course of his life. Very hardened. Someday,
Alex, we'll do it on Patreon, but we'll do like your top 5 smoking characters.
There you go.
I can't judge, but you can.
But for the purposes of this, I think the nicest thing I could say, good, definitely not great. And even then, the whole thing's not good.
Good, definitely not Bone Tomahawk.
This does not exist in the same universe as Bone Tomahawk. And I tried to reserve most of that discussion because if you've listened to any episode of the show before, you know how big of a fan I am of that. So that'll come around in the next portion. But disappointing, and a movie that it's almost 3 hours, so you have plenty of opportunity to want to like it, but I just couldn't do it, man.
Well, that sounds like it needs to be expanded on. Let's go to real talk.
Anchovies.